we were talking about how we wanted an elder to come here. You guys essentially are that because you guys actually literally taught under these great elders, who all of them are not here anymore. So you are the only representation of their knowledge, and we're grateful to have everyone here to hear what we got to say. I guess we're getting started. On that note.
Well, everybody, welcome to Elastic Arts on our final day of the Afrofuturist weekend. So happy to see you here on a rainy Sunday. Thank you for braving the weather. So grateful to our friends from Detroit who come all the way to another time zone to bring their knowledge and their energy and their spirit into our space. Thank you so much. I am just overjoyed with how the weekend has gone, and I can't think of a better way to sit down and just talk about it with some of these knowledgeable brothers and sisters, and under the guidance and eloquent direction of our moderator, LaRob, Rafael, and I want to pass it off to LaRob.
You said eloquent, and I'm like,
Listen to that silky gutter voice, though.
Hi, everybody. First, I just want to invite everybody to just maybe feel a little bit closer. To me, everybody seems like you're a little bit far away. So if you want to stay seated in where you are, that's fine. But I invite you to feel like you're closer in this conversation, because this will ultimately be a conversation between everybody in the room. I want to invite you all to contribute as you see fit. So we'll get going with this conversation. So good afternoon. My name is LaRob K. Rafael, and I do have to say that I am honored to be here as a collaborator and moderator for this conversation today. Thank you, Adam, Angel, and LuFuki, for talking with me about this and inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I know that the Autophysiopsychic Millennium has been transpiring all weekend, and events have been well underway since Friday, but I'm grateful to join and help us think about releasing ourselves as artists into the naturalness that is autophysiopsychic music and Afrofuturism. Today's discussion will go something like this. I'm here to facilitate, but we are all experts in our personal experiences and studies, and I want this to be a natural, free-flowing conversation on the topics brought forth. I will help guide thoughts and questions and quotes, or I will help guide thoughts with questions, quotes, and ideas, but we have a wonderful group of panelists and co-conspirators who will help take the conversation to the next level. So without further ado, I would actually like for them to introduce themselves. I see we have a new guest panelist that I wasn't expecting, so thank you for joining us. Everybody go ahead.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Mike Mumford. I'm from Detroit, born and raised by way of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, both of my parents. I'm a saxophonist, I'm a composer, I'm a jazz historian, I'm a spirit musician, and I'm honored to be here and everything. As Angel was saying, after Friday we had a conversation and we were just meeting, so I was just sharing some of my story. But I'm from Detroit, and with Dr. Lateef, whenever you're a Detroit musician, he was always like the head griot. He was somebody that your teachers talked about. I came up under the old bebop musicians and some of the swing musicians, and Dr. Lateef was like the head honcho in our city. So when I first got into jazz, I was fortunate to be around spirit musicians that were into metaphysics, but it was also Islam mixed in there, and Pan-Africanism, Garveyites. So all of that really, with Afrofuturism, that word coming out, it's like that's a mixture of all of that. So long story short, I studied under the old heads. I went out to the East Coast to study under Jackie McLean, who was my hero. on alto sax. It was an honor because he was like a direct disciple of Charlie Parker. So when I got to school, of course, I'm expecting to learn music and everything. But with Jackie McLean, he was into the metaphysics. It was Islam mixed in there. It was Pan-African mixed in there. And Yusuf Lateef's name came up everywhere I went. I noticed. And I started realizing how important he was. Outside of just having chops and everything, but like his mind, him as a person, and then the way that he served the world and the community, because he was a teacher. If you called Dr. Lateef, he would stay on the phone with you for 2 hours. And then you usually would get a package a week later. He would mail you stuff. So when I got up to school, I was only a couple hours from him. He was in Amherst, Massachusetts. So we would take rides up there and stay 2 or 3 days and pray, practice, chant, meditate. And I started learning how important it was when you are holding your instrument, that part of your development, like with your spirit, you as a person and everything. So that's how I really got close to Dr. Lateef. Another contemporary of his named Ralph Buzzy Jones. He was one of my mentors as well. So eventually Yusuf was just like a part of my life. With a lot of other musicians that were spirit musicians, I did notice, I was talking to LuFuki at breakfast, it was a separation with certain musicians because all of us were trying to get chops and we were actually trying to play bebop at that time. But I noticed all the musicians weren't spirit musicians. It was ego-driven. It really wasn't about community, and it wasn't about teaching. And when you talk about like jazz or just black music, it has to have that community component in it because when you go back to the motherland, it's not about ego. It's an old head or a sage passing you down those stories and traditions. So that's what was happening to me. And like Angel said, we are the new old heads. My students call me a young old head. I'm 48 now, but what happened in the last 10 years, a lot of the elders passed, and there was this big gap. And it went from 70 down to 40. And I was like, oh my God, know what I mean? Like, I'm my teacher now. And I was thinking I had another 15 years in my 50s, 55, but nope, it's here now. And I used to be a lot more quiet and like introverted. And in the last 10 years, I talk. I had to start talking because I had to share. I was telling LuFuki, thank you for even exploring Dr. Lateef's teaching, because I felt like guys out of my age and the sisters out of my era, if you didn't get it then, I almost felt like it had died down. And to see some people interested in actually playing in this concept and everything, it's beautiful. And it's an honor and everything. And I think Dr. Lateef will be very honored and everything because it's some new teachers, it's some new griots, some new sages that'll pass on this knowledge and everything. You got the industry part, which I hate as well, Angel, because it just puts it puts a really negative tone on the music and everything in the industry if you aren't balanced in a spirit musician. So that's me. I mean, I can talk more, blah, 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 but that's kind of me in a nutshell. I perform, of course, I have a band, and then I teach in the school district as well and out of my studio, but I have a requirement. If you study with me, you have to be a spirit musician, just so you don't get arrogant and cocky and just, on that tip and everything. But glad to be here. I'll talk more in a second.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And actually, you really contextualize a lot of what we're going to talk about today, so thank you for offering that.
My name is Ayanna Woods. I'm a singer and a bassist and a composer. I'm really grateful that I've been invited here because, this touches on a lot of what you were saying too, but I feel like having studied composition in a predominantly white institution, there was a lot of that paradigm of the composers up here, the performers down here, and there wasn't that community wasn't really talked about or acknowledged as a vital source for where music comes from or direction for who it's for. So I really, this is like what my spirit has been hungry for, and I don't, well, we're all experts in our own experience.
Right.
I didn't learn the word autophysiopsychic music until 2 weeks ago, but that I think is what I have been seeking out and trying to find it within myself and within my community since I've been back in Chicago. So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ayanna.
Hello, my name is LuFuki. I guess I'm one of the, not organizers, but one of the parties that are so interested in this felt like something had to be done. Like you, Autophysiopsychic, I probably didn't know about it until maybe 7 years ago. Never really like dawned on the term, didn't understand it much. But as I started learning more about myself and about the history of Black people and how it relates to music and how it relates to spirituality, and parts of you start to wake up, right? And so, long story short, I'm sure we're gonna get to it. But Autophysiopsychic answers a lot of questions about why we play Black people, people of color, or anywhere around the world. Why do we play the music that we play? You know, what informs us to play a certain music? Why our music is different than any other music, right? It's a mystery, right? But it's not so much of a mystery if you break it down. And I think Dr. Yusuf Lateef really explained it in a way we can, okay, it is coming from it. It is coming from our spirituality. It is coming from our collective history and culture and our intellectual abilities, right? And he pretty much broke it down. And it's a strange name, but so Autophysiopsychic is actually 3 words into one, right? He was an intellectual, right? So he tried to explain as what they call jazz, a term he didn't like, give it a name that actually gave it a word what the music is, right? And I would even say the word itself is just a beginning,
Right.
because as you know, and the people I've talked to who knew Yusuf Lateef, Dr. Lateef, he's a very deeply spiritual person. So Autophysiopsychic is just a basic, because you can go deep, deep, deep. So reading that, so my background is like, I graduated from Wayne State, but also I'm also like linguistic, you know, I got into Arabic and things like that. So I'm able to like read and write Arabic and translate and things like that. So, and I've done a lot of studies on Sufi metaphysics, you know. So if any of you read the book by Ayanna Khan, The Mysticism of Sound, you know what I'm talking about. So as I'm reading Dr. Lateef's explanation of what this terminology is, the more I was able to connect, okay, I remember reading something like this about the metaphysics of sound from a very, I'd say, Sufi tradition, you know. So this is just the beginning. When you start getting into like psychic connections with people and things that are coming to you, you start to realize that, okay, this is something other than myself. And if you look on his publications, he calls his publication Fana music. Now, Fana in Sufi terminology means annihilation. Yes, it means annihilation. So he's using this term. So in Sufi terminology, annihilation not only means annihilation in the presence of the divine, which means becoming all one with everything. So he was he left us a blueprint so we can dive more into it, you know. And I think meeting people like, you know, knowing people like Mike and Angel, wow, I'm so blessed to have met just a few years ago. I feel like she's part of my family. It's like our souls go back, right? There's a saying in Sufism that the people that you meet in this world that you attach to them before you came here. So when you see them again in this world, it's as if you knew this person. There's no struggle in trying to connect. So as I was thinking about this process, this program, this workshop, or this thing that we're trying to do, Angel was like on my one list. There's only one person on the list because our conversations when we first met. Thank you, Instagram.
Yes, thank you for your Instagram.
It was like she read me and I read her, and she knew exactly what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
A month later, they were here the last
Yeah.
time.
It
Like
was
we talked, and a month later,
easy.
they were here.
Yeah, it was no problem. So one of the signs that they say is Sufism. One of the signs of God's not only him being pleased with something or his approval, is things come easy, and that's the way it's been since that time.
Wow.
Yes, divine providence, what we're talking about, and that is an example of divine providence. Okay, everything that we're just talking about, on everybody on this stage that's gathering together, this is called divine providence. All right, I'm Angel Bakuli. I am composer, clarinetist, pianist, vocalist, DJ, educator, spiritual musician. I should have said that first. I'm a spiritual musician. Actually, I'm a spiritual musician first and foremost. And I'm very grateful to be on this panel. I'm glad we're having a discussion. Everyone on this stage, and Asher streaming in from all the way from South Africa. These are some of those brilliant minds in the world about the music that we're talking about. And we're in Chicago, which is a very, very spiritual place. On one end, we've got you studying under Jackie McLean and Yusef, actually personally knowing him, and millions of others, I'm sure. And Adam over here, Kavanaugh, actually studied with Phil Coran and went to the Velvet Lounge with Fred Anderson and Von Freeman. Their pictures are up in the office. These elders are here with us, spirit imprints. It's just like, if you touch something, a part of that thing gets on you and a part of you gets on that thing. Well, just because your body died don't mean that the spirits ain't still doing that. I don't know how I got into the rabbit hole of Yusef Lateef. I didn't really know about him until about 7 years ago when I met all you guys. But I told my dad I started listening to Yusef Lateef. He's like, oh yeah, Grandpa had all the records. He used to listen to him all the time. So that means I was listening to Yusef Lateef and didn't know. He was beckoning me. This was the same way Sunrise was the same thing. He was beckoning me when I was a child. And so then it came to this point where I really got into his music, and it was Revelation from that album, The Centaur and the Phoenix. That's the song that got me. And then down the rabbit hole, I worked at a record store, and so I got all the records. And Yusef Lateef record come in, I got it. So they're around. If anybody wants to take a look, I brought my collection. Feel free to look at them. They're not for sale though, but feel free to take a peek. And then as I was getting deeper into his work, there was a little known book called The Repository of Scales. What's the title? And I hit him, I was like, yo, Adam, you heard about this book? He's like, yeah. So Adam was working at his job. Listen, Adam photocopied the whole thing for me, y'all. My brother. I think it was like free photocopies, and then he was working at University of Chicago or something. And he put it, I was like, he put it in a binder. And I was like, this is my BFF forever. In a binder and everything. And when you open it, the first thing you see is that John Coltrane mystery wheel. Woo! You open it up and that's what you see. And I'm like, okay, this is a different type of method book, because I studied classical music, right? So I had my Behrman and I had them little etude books. I loved them, right? But this was an etude book like I'd never seen before. What is this diagram? and you go on and you read about Dr. Yusuf Lateef, and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't just. I remember when I first learned about him, I was walking around, and we're gonna keep it real here. I asked the white man, I was like, yo, you know Yusuf Lateef? He's like, oh yeah, he was he was like the side man with Cannonball Adderley.
Whoa. All right.
No, I'm not dissing Cannibal. No. I'm honoring that elder too. But it's like, that's the only box that you can. The side man for Cannonball Adderley, when this is a professor, a writer, a novelist, a visual painter, a healer, a world-renowned multi-instrumentalist, a prophet. He prophesied this whole robot age. You can look up the video. Look up the video on YouTube called Robot Man. Now, when he was doing that song, I'm sure people was like, what is he talking about? But if you look at that song right now, and then you go into your back pocket and you pull out a device called an Android, well, it makes a lot of sense now. So it's very important that we're having this panel today. And thank you all for having me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody. My name is Zanolini. I am the executive director of the Master of Arts. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I've lived in Chicago, 15 years or something like that. Studied with Phil Coran, member of the AACM, multi-instrumentalist. I enjoy writing about music and astronomy and a lot of things, I guess. I'm not used to introducing myself in such a formal way, and so I would much rather hear about our guest who's hovering benevolently above us,
Yes.
Asher and Jose, who was so kind enough to join us all the way from South Africa. I don't really know what time it is there, but hopefully it's not too late. And I also want to thank our production team, Ben
Yes.
and Marty, for figuring out how to bring Asher to us. And this is the future is now. So thank you all very, very much.
Yo, what's up, everyone? This is a pretty strange experience to be like looking at the panelists, but knowing that there's a whole bunch of other people in the space as well. And I'm in Cape Town, it's like 5 to 10 p.m. And what's up, everyone? Nice to see you all. I always feel like I'm living in the future when I'm on like a Skype or a Zoom. It always seems pretty far out to me. But thank you to, ultimately Adam and those who invited me to this, but my connection to Chicago really comes through Angel. And before I met Angel, obviously we've been really into Chicago Art Ensemble and love of the AACM stuff. So when I met Angel, it was like this incredible connection to people that come from this musical tradition that are like extending it in various ways. And I feel really privileged to have been able to come out to Chicago and to play with Angel in her band at times, become friends, and to be part of this living tradition. I think of myself as a cultural worker. I'm involved in various kind of practices. I'm a student of history. I play music and I write. I guess probably the reason that I was invited to be part of the panel is related to some of the work that I've been doing on South African jazz, what gets called South African jazz at least. So I did a project a few years ago, which was basically trying to think about what is in South African jazz that isn't the music. What are the outsides of the music? So really to ask about cosmologically, philosophically and culturally, where does the music come from, you know? And so yeah, was kind of trying to think through the cultural traditions that exist in this part of the world, that improvised music becomes one space through which those practices are extended and kind of become extended into the present day. So to try and think about jazz as part of a much older kind of tradition of music, spirit, gathering, etc. But yeah, happy to be here with everyone. Yeah, peace.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate you for being here. So if you couldn't tell, we're already well into the conversation. I do want to take just 1 second, and this is for the benefit of everybody in the room. I like to do this as a moderator just to establish some rules of conversation. Not rules, but just guidance, parameters, right? So I'd like for us all to kind of just make a few agreements. And those are as follows, if I can find them. So obviously lean into that productive discomfort, right? So there's going to be a lot of things that you may know, a lot of things that you may not know. Lean into what you don't know. Lean into when you feel uncomfortable, because that's when you learn something. That's when, you birth something. Friction births something new, right? So lean into those moments. Notice your power dynamics. Be aware of how you use your privilege in this space, whether by monopolizing the time or disengaging completely. Tend to your own balance of talking, but also tend to your own balance of listening. Remember that everybody is doing the best that they can. So no shame, no blame. Everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have, and that means even you. Blaming means that you miss an opportunity to learn something. And then keep a learning mindset. Share what you're learning in this moment, not what you already know. I invite you to share what is true to you, but also seek equally to understand truths that are different from your own. Can everybody agree to that?
Yes.
Amazing. So I took the time, I have to say, I met with Adam and LuFuki 2 or 3 weeks ago, and just immediately my mind was blown. I sat there with my mouth agape being so you want me to moderate a conversation about this concept that you're literally blowing my mind on right now? How am I supposed to even put together anything? I mean, literally in that conversation, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm writing down everything that was said to me. So I will admit to you right now that I am learning in this space. This is amazing. The concepts that you brought forth already, I'm like, and it all makes sense. So thank you. And that being said, I took a moment because I'm a visual person and I made a PowerPoint presentation that I can't really share with you all. But if you all will be imaginative with me, we all can experience this PowerPoint presentation together. So this portion of the conversation is entitled Black American Music, Authentic Expression and Storytelling. So I have a question that I want to pose to our panelists and to the audience for you all to think about it, for some of our panelists to address. What is powerful about Black American music? Let's take a moment, because I know that's a heavy question. But what is powerful about Black American music?
Black American music is powerful because all of the music on the planet is not made possible without it. For a long time in Europe, even with the classical music, the time signatures they were in was just 4/4, just standard time. So when they started making trips to Africa, they heard the polyrhythms, different time signatures, and if you notice, Mozart and the composers, they started writing a lot more hip stuff after that. Black music is powerful, even in art. Picasso's work changed when he started going to Africa. It changed after that. It pulled them out of the blue period. But no music is possible without black music.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
I think the number of things that's powerful about Black American music are innumerable. One thing that just came to my mind is that what we know as Black American music is extremely ancient, and it far exceeds. What is so powerful about it is something that exceeds the timeline of the United States. And so what's powerful about it to me is that it helps me relate to the thought world and experiences of the ancestors that have created all of this for us, and in the same way connects us to our future descendants. And that's why, Afrofuturism is such an exciting concept to me. I feel as though it's this kind of confluence of those ancient traditions and then sort of this strange, power of the United States in its kind of global domination, along with it tended to flow this ancient tradition that then actually touched all over the world because of that, those political realities. And it's a way that those ancient traditions have touched, billions and billions of people. And that's what I thought about.
Yeah, thank you, Adam.
This is such a really important question. Thank you so much, LaRob. And I think we should try our best to answer this question, everyone, because Leroy Jones' book on Black music was him studying we didn't get off the slave boat singing the blues. There was something, that's why when you said Black American music, I like the specifics of that.
Yes.
And what is powerful about Black American music. Like what happened to us, our people, when we were in these particular conditions. Oh yeah, there you got it right there. Everyone get that book. Everybody, blues people, everybody get both of those books. It's important. And those out there who are creative writers, and if you write, please begin to write about what we're talking about today. I keep reiterating to everyone that we are in a historical moment, living with this plague. Okay, this goes down in the history books. Meaning 100 years from now, they're going to be like, ooh, COVID, they're going to be talking about it. So us as creatives and artists, what we have to say right now is very important. So it's important that we ask this question and that we answer it. Thank you, sister, for getting your pen and paper out. Thank you. And write about it extensively, because that's all Leroy Jones was doing. He was talking about Coltrane and them, like us. And look who's Coltrane, So power, and I'm drawing on what you were saying about it is the thing. And then you talking about these traditions, and it sounds like a battery to me, like the battery source, the charge of no matter what conditions you put this black substance in, because we got to take it away from this idea of the physio part, okay? The physio part is transitory, okay? The physio part at this moment looked like me, Adam, everybody on the stage. But on the physio part, they could also look like Bill, and you wouldn't know that Bill got two black parents. You wouldn't know. How many people got friends in their family who blonde hair and blue eye, but they black? All right, so we need to get away from this idea that when we're talking about black, that we're talking about just the physio part. No, we're talking about a vibration. Black is a vibration. And Dr. Yusef Lateef was trying to get to that source. A lot of musicians are trying to get to that source. I'm trying to, what is that thing that when you walk in the room, you be like, for whatever reason, I feel like somebody black lives here. What is that? What is it that, like, when we get a hold, whatever religion, okay, whatever world religion, we make it something different. Like, I always tell people, wasn't nobody really But really, people messing with Buddhism until Herbie Hancock and Tina Turner, you know what I mean? Or like the way we do religion and everything, there's a difference between a black church and a white church for sure. You see a difference. So we're taking it away from all the physio part, and we need to get to that psychic part. We need to go to that psychic part, and in that psychic part is this thing that we term blackness. And so when we talk about what is powerful about it, it is the source, it is the root. And that source is not what you call jazz or or rock or everything. It goes even further. It goes to a thing called the spirituals. The spirituals. I had the privilege when I was a little girl to be born into a very spiritual family. My dad used to, in Georgia, he used to take us to Reverend C.J. Johnson's church. They didn't have no instruments. They just used their feet and stomp, and it was going, ooh, ooh. All of us on the stage, everybody of color can do that. Do it. Ah, you know how to do it, do it. Ah, oh. There's a quote from Sam Cooke, and he's being interviewed, and they ask him, "Sing me 5 minutes of soul," and he does that. Now, we all just did that. Didn't the whole room change? That's the power of black music.
Mic drop it.
I mean, honestly, there's nothing I can add to that other than to summarize it. It is our experience that many people in the world can relate to, because there are people oppressed everywhere. And for some reason, we have the ability by the divine to express it in a way that everyone can relate to. I'm glad you showed that book, because that book actually, Leroy Jones actually started me off on my that trajectory of self-discovery, even before I even picked up a guitar. I didn't pick up a guitar until I went back to college. But reading what he did, his transformations, things like that, his connection with Coltrane and Malcolm X, it really set my life in a totally different trajectory. And that led me up to where I am now. A friend of mine from France, I asked him like 20 years ago, I said, so he's half Algerian and half French mixed. So I asked him, I said, what do you guys like listen to when you were ex-teenager, right? He said, we listen to, and he spoke in a very strong French accent, right? He said, but we listen to NWA. I said, why NWA? And he said, because because they were speaking about the same things we were experiencing, right? From America, because the ghettos in France are actually the suburbs. It's the other way around. But he said, we listened to them because they were actually saying the same things we were going through. And I asked a friend of mine from Nepal, she's from Nepal, the mountains. I said, what music do you guys listen to? She said, we listen to a lot of Bob Marley. I said, why do you listen to Bob Marley? Did you actually understand what he was saying? She said, most times, no, we didn't understand what he was saying, but it was the energy of what was coming behind it. So I think it's the blessings that we have as Black people in this country, particularly in this country, we're able to relate bring about our music in a way that can relate to people all over the world. Because on the surface of things, right, on the most basic level of things, we all want the same thing, right? But for some reason, we've been blessed to express it in a way that other people can't. And it connects. Bring the rhythm and things like that. We improvise. We bring all these elements and everything. The spirituality, the prayers, the struggles, the life. We don't. try to code it in a way that, you know, these things don't have, you know, don't exist. So it's easy for us, I guess, in a certain way to express that when we are the object of what's being put on us, you know. And it'll be different if it's the other way around because you don't have our experience, right? And so, well, by people all over the world, the diaspora, it's the same thing. You know, we've been blessed somehow, and I'm sure we can figure out why. Our life experiences, our spiritualities, our endeavors through these hollow instruments and our voices and our stomping, you know, and it continues into techno and go on and on. It's all there. You know?
Yeah, thank you, LuFuki. Angel, you said something that is just, it's like cycling in my head. I can't get it out. That black is a vibration. And when you first said it, I was like, And then as LuFuki started to talk, I was like, oh, okay. Now I see what you mean. And so, and also I have to say that it is so amazing to have you all as panelists because everything that I wanted to get to, y'all just touched on. I mean, I specifically started with this idea of Black American music, and rightfully, y'all picked that apart. Black American music. What are we really saying, and what is the question that I'm asking? And then LuFuki, you just brought me to the next point of, then what is the difference between what is Black American music and that experience and that vibration versus Black diasporic music? And how does that translate into other people's experiences? And Angel, you answered it by Black being this vibration that people kind of align themselves with in certain cases, where in Nepal, I'm listening about Marley, I don't really understand what he's saying, but I feel what he's saying. That's powerful. So I just wanted to take a moment to just acknowledge that. So thank you, Angel, and thank you, LuFuki, and Adam, and Mike. Thank you so much for adding that. One of the things that I think, Adam, you touched on is this idea of coming back to, or maybe Mike, you both kind of touched on this a little bit, kind of coming back to this idea of community and finding the centering of where things started as it pertains to music and why we do it. And LuFuki, you sent me an article about Yusef Lateef, and in that article there was this quote, and I might be pronouncing some of these words wrong, so please forgive me, but it talks about when he joined the Ahmadiyya movement, and it says, in joining the Ahmadiyya movement in 1948, Lateef entered an Islamic community that had attracted many other musicians of the bebop era, including Art Blakey, Ahmad Jamal, Dakota Staton, Saeed Shahid, and others. The Ahmadis practice an inclusive, multiracial form of Islam that stresses finding peace by following the path of God and Islamic education. And so to the point earlier about kind of trying to find the central point, trying to find the place where all things are connected, where you remove yourself from this idea that there is this one thing and that instead there are all things, again, this practice of inclusive, Islam that focuses more on the central thing that connects all things, that it's all right here. So again, I told you that I would be learning during this, and what I'm seeing in this conversation with you all is the studies that you all have done pertaining to Dr. Yusef Lateef are coming forth. And so it's all here. I have all these quotes pulled, and y'all are basically saying everything. So again, thank you. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Then we'll keep going. So one of the things that we keep saying...
Can I jump in? Really?
Yes, please. I'm so sorry, actually.
Yeah, no, not at all. I guess I wanted to pick up on something that Adam said, and that some other people kind of reference as well. But I think I almost don't want to respond to your question, but like almost the frame of the question, right? And I think Adam picked up on the problem of America, right? And like too often, or very often, America is equated with the USA, right? Where the Americas is two whole continents. You know what I'm saying? And so there's also this particular way in which the Black experience in the world gets very kind of overdetermined by the experience of Black people in the United States, in a way that kind of excludes both the experiences and kind of cultural production of people in the rest of the world. So I was really glad that someone mentioned Bob Marley within the frame of kind of Black American music. But I guess really to kind of deconstruct like what I mean by like American music. Yeah. And I guess maybe one of the things that I thought was, I don't know if people know Robin Kelly's book, Africa Speaks, American Answers. Sorry, there's like, I've got a delay in my earphones, so I'm hearing myself like twice. So every now and again, I kind of get tripped out by that. It's a very strange experience. But I'll try and keep rapping and make sense. But Robin Kelly wrote a book, I think in 2011 or 12, called Africa Speaks, America Answers, Modern Jazz and Revolutionary Times. And basically it traces the various forms of dialogue and influence that are going on between the continent and the States, the music that's coming out of the States and the music that's coming out of the continent, and how like the anti-colonial movement that is happening from the late 40s, 50s, 60s enters the kind of consciousness of musicians in the States, and how that kind of also is in conversation with what people on the continent are doing, musically, culturally, politically. And just, I find that a really interesting way to kind of decenter how we think about like American music. So like to speak about Black American music, we can't even just be speaking about music that is coming from America, right? We can't even be speaking about music that comes from the United States of America. So to understand that as part of like such much broader kind of tradition that has been influenced by music from a whole variety of places, and has influenced music in a whole variety of places. So to try and just kind of crack that open up, you know? Yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted to say, which was almost not a response to your question, but an engagement with the frame, I guess, in a sense.
So, thank you so much for bringing that up, because it's not created out of the vacuum, right? The artists that I look up to, or who I look at as an example, like Dr. Lateef, Coltrane, and a whole list of them, right? And for myself too, it all relates to motherland, bottom line. It's all about how we can get to ourselves. How can we connect with our ancestors, right? How can we get back the sound that has been abandoned? And that's the African sound, that's the African influence. And that has been my endeavor ever since I picked up a guitar or whatever. It is how I can add these or get back these African influences that's been lost in our music today, and as a way of preserving this spiritual heritage. So when I say Black music in America, I'm really talking about African music, essentially. Because I'm trying to get back there. I'm trying to connect with my ancestors, you know. Our history didn't start here. And it didn't start in Africa, it started somewhere else. We just happened to come upon Africa as the birthplace of all creation, of all mankind. We're trying to get back to there to fill in what we lost. So, essentially, thank you for bringing that up, because when I say Black American music, I'm actually saying getting back to our roots, which is Africa.
Thank you, LuFuki. I just want to kind of highlight, I guess, what Asher is bringing forth in that I'm a word person too, so words have to mean things, and the way that you're breaking this phrase down is really important, and it asks the question, why do we have this kind of lumping into all these things? Like, America is not just the United States, we have the Americas, and so why do we say Black American music? It's very important, again, that we kind of break it down in that way. So thank you, Asher, for challenging that phrase. And I think, you know, we've kind of talked a little bit about the authenticity of Blackness in music and how it stretches beyond the coasts of the United States and goes into the Americas and certainly into Africa, as you're saying, LuFuki. And I think maybe the next point that I might want to ask is, you know, we talk a lot about Blackness being in the music that we, you know, that we are talking about, and kind of getting back to this natural thing, but there's also an invisibility of Blackness in this particular art form, or in jazz, if you will. And I know that we've been trying to reassess the use of that word, even jazz, because it's very highly controversial. So Adam, I kind of want to pose this question to you, because I think you were the person that kind of brought it to my attention. You were ready.
LaRob asked me deep questions. Get ready.
And again, like I said, you know, the things that you all are saying are really kind of having me like, oh, okay. But when we talk about this central, you know, who gets centered? Because when we say Black American music, I agree with you, Asher, that we most times we actually mean Black music in America, but that's not the total story. So why is it that, why do we do that? What is this centralization, and how has it in turn made Black people invisible almost in this art form? Adam, does that make sense? Y'all following me? Okay, I need some feedback. Can we some church? Thank you.
What did you think about what he just said?
Well, what I think in general, it's like this is something that's bouncing, like because it's vibrations, it's bouncing. And when you think about Latin America, but you also think about South America and Brazilian music and Brazilian funk, it's like something was within Brazil that was coming out. And I'm sorry, I get nervous now.
No, that's okay. Take your time.
Alright. But so I've been really diving into all different aspects of like diasporic like sounds. And Brazil is probably one of the most intense and dense parts of the Americas that like celebrate African culture and heritage to like the root. Like it's not as like questionable as like, or are we African, or I don't know if I identify with that. Brazil is one of those places where it's like, I am this is a part of me, and I'm also mixed with everything else.
Right.
And the mask off. But one of the things that I think is very interesting about Brazilian music, when I would go to Africa, when I would listen to my uncles and stuff, because my uncle's from Ivory Coast, and they would play a lot of Latin music and a lot of Latin funk and a lot of like those particular sounds that are like Afro. And it would just be like this thing when I go back home where I'm like hearing this and it's like bouncing towards them and they're like vibrating with it. But they're also listening to hip hop, they're listening to, you know, the audio physio.
Yes.
We all had to practice a lot.
Music, you know, so when they listen to that type of music as well, they're connecting with, you know, America. And one of my uncles back home, I just met him last year for the first time, but he would travel the U.S. And like he was a writer and he was a journalist. And he told me that he loved like Black American people. Like he was, because when I went there, I lost hope. So I was just like, I just hate America. I hate where we are as Black people. Like there was like this kind of like self-hate with like where our culture has like drowned and like where the direction that it's gone. Because I'm like, black music has been so liberating throughout the world. Like, you know, it's inspired so many people to like step up. I mean, hip hop in general has been used, you know, for people in Asia who want to like express the disgust that they have with their, you know, presidents and, you know, like their politicians. So like rap is like a form of like rebellion. And when I met with him and I was talking to him, and he was telling me about how he loved like Black American music and Black American people, you know, it was because of the sound first coming to him and the sound calling to him. And like he told me about one of his friends in Miami from Cuba and like how like they would listen to music together and how they have this connection, like that's his brother. But it's all like from the sound that's like, you know, bouncing throughout the diaspora. So I think we don't pay attention to how we mirror each other in a way. So whether it's in, you know, North America, Black American people, or it's, you know, South American, Black American people, or it's African, you know, just in Africa, it's like we all like have this connection and it happens through our music and our sound.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Woo!
Man, would you have a seat?
We're actually just a big circle. This is kind of like a stage. I mean, honestly, like this formation is like a little bit of a mirror of like the bizarre, you know, situation that we find ourselves in. Because the substance is one thing, and then all of the institutions and the packaging and all of the machinations of capitalism and the political entity that we're occupying are this way of sort of disconnecting the substance from, you know, the way it comes out. So, you know, thank you so very, very much. And this is why that just made this worth it. It wasn't before. Okay, sorry. I want to put this down because I want to hear whatever you have to say. I just want to say that, yes, thank you so much to Asher for bringing that. That's why I'm so grateful to have a voice from outside because, yeah, like, I think it's just like the size of the United States and like the power of it, and we're like in the middle of that, you know? So it's like, it's hard for us to see ourselves, you know? And I think we have all this outsized influence, but, you know, I mean, I read, you know, that wonderful book by Robert D. G. Kelly and also, you know, The Black Atlantic by Paul Gilroy and things like that helped me understand, hey, you know, we're not the center of the universe, but it's sometimes you can't, you know, remember that. But yeah, I really appreciate your comments, and I'm gonna put the mic down because I know.
I just want to say one thing maybe. Thank you. So what was your name again? Manera. Thank you so much for that because yes. Wow. I mean, really. I mean, that was a question. You answered the question. Is, you know, we have this mindset of what the United States, this kind of like oppressive, in a box mindset almost, that we're not fortunate enough to receive often the perspective of how the music works and operates outside of the United States. And that's such an important perspective. Thank you for that.
I just wanted to thank you, and I think it was also bouncing around in my head what Angel said earlier about it being a vibration, and I think going back to your first question, that's so central to what makes Black American or Black diasporic, Black music so powerful is that it always comes back to that core in such a resourceful way. Like we've been forced to transform the essence in so many ways, and you don't need to have instruments. You can have your body and stomp your feet, like you were saying. You don't need to be bound to a certain form. If somebody catches the spirit in church, the song might go on for 10 more minutes. And it's just the ability to meet the moment, both like in the political sense, but also literally in the bodies connecting in a room sense of I'm going to meet you where you're at, and I'm going to support you, and we're going to like travel through this feeling together.
Yeah.
I think that ability to transform and just evolve is what makes Black music so powerful and so indestructible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Indestructible consciousness.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah.
I wanted to connect with what Ayanna was saying, but also Manera and Angel. about, you know, when these artists in that time of oppression had to get up on stage, we were a form of entertainment. And spirituality is not entertainment. And so when she was on stage and performing, well, she wasn't performing, she was being.
Yes.
So she was not trying, she was just being herself.
Yeah.
And that was her liberation. Although there was this spectacle
Yeah.
where people were drawn and attracted, not knowing because it was in them. They were drawn to that struggle to get out through the liberation of doing what we call to do.
Yeah.
But like that level of liberation is so important because my friend said that liberation is not a destination. When we do that stuff with our bodies and when we connect like that, we're not really going anywhere, but we are.
Yeah.
Like we're already the future. And you were saying like this time is gonna be in the future about like COVID, and even this here, what we're doing this weekend, like this is gonna be in the future. Like it's gonna keep going on and on. And it's like when you think about it in that nature, like we're really creating everything in that step. And this is like our liberation. And it's like we're not really deterred from this in any shape or form because it's timeless, it's here, it's now. But because we're in human form, we have to like measure things in a form of, in a shape of like time. But like because we're able to tap into it through that connection of not having to really move or leave or like the that's how we connect like through the vibration. Like that's literally our destination. Like we are the destination, we are the liberation, we are the like hearing y'all say like explain that it makes me feel like it's so much easier to, you know, we dress, this is a form of expression. Us having light candles and stuff like that, you know, like this is a form of expression, but it's like also honoring Lufuki, like honoring ancestors. But the vessel part, like we not want to let like the veil get in the way of us being able to be liberated. And that struggle through skin color and all that other things, and like misunderstanding why you're here on earth, that's a complete distraction from what we're supposed to be doing and how that's why people like black vibration, you know, it's that thing, that thing, you go and you like, it's that thing. Like it's like, you know, it's like that thing, like you said, like you going like, I know that smell.
And look, you know that smell across the world because Asher, when I met Asher in South Africa, I did a random trip to South Africa on a whim. And I didn't know a soul, and I asked my friends around, who should I meet up with? And someone said, meet up with Asher. And I met up with him, and there was that vibration. Like when I was over there, it was like, okay, this is where I'm from. This is where we're all from, because it was like the vibe was there. I didn't have to explain myself, you know, and that gets into a part of like how I met LaRob, being in situations where I'm the only person with that vibe. And I go to a space where that vibe ain't there, and I'm getting treated and feeling a certain way about being my vibe. And I'm getting mistreated and I'm getting oppressed. Okay, and I know I look like I'm doing well, but you're oppressing me. And I vibe with Asher on that over there. I vibe with LaRob, Ayanna and I were both in Bahia. That was both of us were there in Brazil, right before the pandemic. So I've been to Africa, I've been to the motherland. I've been here in this captivity. In this land of my captivity, I waste away in my iniquity. We're still captive. And we got to set the captives free. And the key is through this sound. We can all see that this sound is very powerful. I teach a class to young men in a detention center. And I need y'all to pray for me because they're having a hard time with the past. They're having a hard time with the past, y'all. And I need y'all's help and prayer because I taught them about the music of now. They was digging that. When I talk about Afro, the music of the future, what we gonna talk about, their interest was there. But as soon as I started saying, hey, oh, the blues. Oh, Dr. Yusef Lateef, they wasn't having it. And even the warden of the place, she took me to the side last week and was like, you're losing them. And I'm like, but I gotta teach them this. I can't pepper this up and make it cute to keep their interest. They have to know where they come from. They have to know what it's about. And so us having this panel is important because now we actually have it recorded and put in place so that we can have documentation, so that we can have new pedagogy. Because the pedagogy that we have is oppressing our babies to the point that they don't want to know who the past is. You know, they got them all twisted. They got them literally locked up. And let me tell you, some of these kids who y'all think are the worst, baddest ones, they're bored. Some of the baddest kids are the smartest. They're the most intellectual. They're the most brainiest. And they know BS. So they be like, oh, this is bull. I'm just not going to do nothing. So I know when I'm teaching this class, I'm teaching the most brilliant minds in America. And they're captive. You know, they're in a cell. Speak on it, Mike. I know you work with youth too.
I'm glad you brought that up because I have to run. I actually am catching a train back to Detroit to get back to my students. I took Friday off, and what I'm working on is doing some books to put into the school system because, like Angel was saying, they're struggling. They don't like the past, they like the present and everything, so I'm working on that with other people as well. So pray for me, send me energy, send energy to my students, and send me energy so I don't get weary. Because I'm working in the U.S. educational system, and it can be a bit much at times. But this is very powerful. I'm taking this energy back with me into the classroom. Anybody, I would love to keep in touch with you all and connect. My email is michaeljmumford@gmail. You can look me up on social media. Facebook is Mike and then MONFORD. Instagram is Mike Mumford 8, and I would like to keep this going and keep the dialogue going and everything. But y'all have a blessed afternoon, and I'm out of here. I'm back to the D.
Thank you, Mike. As you prepare to leave, I just want to kind of hark on one thing that, I'm sorry, what was your name, ma'am?
Oh, Sophia.
Sophia, you said something, and then it was reiterated up here too, and it brought me back to something that I say all the time when I'm not exactly sure what my profession is. What I've been doing over the past few years has been a really loud voice as it pertains kind of getting back to what is natural and authentic as it pertains to performance and artistic craft. And one of the things I always think about is I did all this study of classical music, I did all this study of singing, I can, do all of these tricks and trades and all of this, but I kind of lost interest in that because that wasn't how I got interested in music. And I always come back to this moment or these moments that I would have in church where there wasn't a performance happening. When somebody had the mic and they were singing a song, it wasn't a performance. It was communication. It was dialogue. It was an experience that everybody in that room felt. And when I walked away from that service, I wasn't sitting there being like, wow, she really engaged her diaphragm and she really, lifted her soft palate and the tongue placement was exact. I didn't care about any of that. All I cared about was how I felt when that person was talking to me. And so you said, kind of releasing ourselves and getting back to this aspect of what is, authentic, this place, this vibration that we keep coming back to again, this autophysiopsychic. I'm getting it now. I'm getting it.
We're trying to develop it.
Yeah.
I like what you said, LuFuki, about okay.
Thank you.
Yusef Lateef just brought a blueprint.
Yeah.
There's I have to add Sun Ra to the conversation always, but there's the first poem in his book. I haven't read the whole thing. I have this book of poetry, He talks about, the first poem is called Blueprint Declaration, and how there's a bit of the declaration in the blueprint, and you know, it's all part of each other. And I love this concept that you're talking about, physics, okay. Physics and psychic, these are Greek words, right? Does anybody know the etymology of physics? Anybody? I don't either, but I was just hoping somebody would. Well, what do you think of physio? I mean, we need to look up the etymology of words. I think Dr. Sunra was very big on understanding linguistics. So think that we have a linguist here who studied Arabic. We have to understand what we are saying, because word is vibration. In the beginning was the word, was the sound. And Dr. Yusuf Latif was trying to get us that. So his repository of scales, I encourage everyone to get this. If you're a musician, get this scale book, because he has scales from ancient China, from the Ming Dynasty. He's got Hebrew scales in there. He has a retrograde scale. Adam and I composed a piece with that. We need to bring that out, you know. So they have like all these scales, and he gave us everything. He left all these resources. Why was he doing that? I don't think he was just doing it just so that he just, I did this. I think he was doing it because he wants us to have our universities, our Timbuktus, our libraries, because for thousands and thousands of centuries, where did everybody go for education? Where you think Pythagoras learned all that stuff from? Everybody went to that area. And as we're talking about Africa and America, both of those words aren't even the vibration. Those are both Italian words. Those are both words from Italy. Okay? Africa isn't Africa, America isn't America. Those are the terms that we're talking about now. So we have to dissect even those words. We got to get to the nitty gritty. What are we really talking about here? You know, we're trying to figure it out. Dr. Latif, like you said, he's just like, this is just a blueprint. Because even he himself is like, I'm trying to figure out what this is. Beyond it, you know. And so we're going to have these councils and these meetings for the next millennial, y'all. We're going to have to be dedicated in having these councils talking about what is this thing that is so layered and deep. Otherwise, if we don't define it, somebody else will. And they will, and they're very perverse with it. Perversion is taking something, it's not necessarily bad. I can pervert this tablecloth and make it a dress. I don't know if it's a tablecloth, no, it's a dress. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I don't like it, I don't like it. I don't like your perversion. I don't like it. We do things another way, and I want to do it our way.
Yeah.
That's why we said fauna. What do you mean? That part.
Yes.
That part.
Asher, I wanted to give you an opportunity if you had anything that you wanted to comment or add to this before I move to the next point. So much has gone forth, but I wanted to give you a chance to speak.
No, I mean, there's so much going on, so much interesting stuff getting said. But I almost wanted to go back to make an attempt at answering the question you asked before,
Okay.
which I think we've all been answering in different ways.
Yeah.
Which was, around what is it that is powerful about Black American music. And I think everyone's given us like little bits and pieces of what all of that constitutes. And I think that, I come from a way of thinking about Black as a political identity, primarily, which is connected in many ways to different, a whole range of different cultural influences, in South Africa, through the Black consciousness tradition, we think about Black as the positive affirmation of the condition of being non-white. and a challenge to the idea of race itself, you know. So like the black political community is constituted by everyone who doesn't want to be a non-white, you know. So that includes people in South Africa who came as laborers from other parts of the continent, people who came from India, Malaysia, Indonesia, and that's our kind of conception of black. And so I think of black as like a political concept, which is a kind of a united front against white supremacy, you know, to destroy the logic and the material infrastructure of race and racism. And so I think that's one real important aspect of, for me, about how we think about black music, is that it's something that comes from internal to this situation of oppression and exploitation under racial capitalism. And, you know, someone mentioned like that liberation, like the music is part of that process. And in many ways it can be that process. So I think part of the power of the music is created by people in an oppressed situation trying against all odds to make life in a situation that really doesn't want us to make life, you know? And I think that something about that social situation and the desire and the insistence to live from within that situation is part of the power of black music.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, the mic drops just all over, just, oh my God. Woo! Absolutely, yeah.
I just think that we're on, we're on European land, and is Hollywood and everything was created here, and we're African, and it's like we get caught up in their, in their bubbles, and I feel like it kind of goes downhill sometimes because we start taking part in the European magic, basically like selling ourselves for money and stuff like that. But I think that is powerful because it's America. America is like obsessed with themselves. When I say America, I'm gonna say like white America. And it's like we're here, like it's powerful because we're on their platform. So it's like, basically, America is European, and Europe, and then they colonize all over in Africa, so they get to hear our stuff because they're playing our music. We're just on their platform. And since we're African, it's really powerful. Not us, like a majority, I say majority of Black Americans don't even know that rap is African. It's like, I feel like it's the future African music. And even R&B and stuff, it's all African. It's just, I think we just got caught up in the European shit, And then it's like, cause when I listen to Afro beat, all the musicians that's coming out of Nigeria, and it's like really powerful. Like, visuals on YouTube, but they're also getting on American platforms too. So it's like we can see it. I don't know if I'm explaining it right.
You're right.
Because they're like on YouTube, I'm just like, this is like the cinema of the time. Even though it's music videos, they're like in the villages making powerful videos talking about the core of colonization. And I think it's really powerful because they kind of like really stripped us away, but like it still stands. We're doing it, not even noticing. Some people don't even know. Like I feel like a lot of the rappers go toxic because I feel like they have that African energy, but it's just like in European land.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been perverted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for that. I mean, that's exactly how I feel, and I feel like that's really central to the project that we are engaged in at this very moment, which is to, I mean, one of the, in answer to your question, that I think we all continue to engage in. I mean, it's a weighty question, and you know, it takes a while to sink in. But yeah, that's what's so exciting to me. Well, one of the many things that's very exciting to me about Black music is because it offers kind of a window beyond all of those structures, right? Because there's something beyond all of those things that are really containing all that spirit, all the energy, and all that vibration, right? It presents itself as those containers, but there's something trying to break out of those containers, like all the different genres and all the different boundaries between the different kinds of music and all the different, you know, labels and divisions between political entities like the United States, separate from, you know, all the different areas of the world where Black people live. But the music crosses all of those boundaries, and it breaks out of all of those structures. It wants to, and so there's always this kind of struggle. And I feel like that's what we've come to do, is to try to recognize, you know, the commercialization of Black music, and you know, the kind of containment of it within these structures that serve not to increase our power, but that are actually working against our empowerment, and recognize that, and then build together a way out of that, right? So that's kind of why I'm here, is to, as Asher said, to just destroy white supremacy. You know, absolutely.
I'm sorry, can I say something really quick? The brother from Detroit, and I think you picked up on it as well when you said spirituality is not a performance. Something to answer the question, Black music is so powerful, and I think everybody's been affirming this with their points to people specifically on the panel, but like how there's nothing to hide behind in any facet of like the core of Black music. And usually when we are, I mean, everybody in this room can agree that Black people, especially as artists, are innovators, if not like trendsetters or like forerunners in what we do. But like, just from my experience, like growing up in the church as a musician, it's like, if you're in like a jam session, or if you are like on the praise team or whatever you do, it's like you have to be at a certain level or you're not performing, or you're not on this platform to help other people elevate. And like what the brother from Detroit said was really important to me about like classical music, because in white tradition, how there's like jesters and like musicians to entertain a king. And I thought about how like with us, not to say we didn't have that, but like the grit of where our music comes from isn't for others. It's usually rooted in the self. And like, I guess to pick up on like Bell Hooks has a quote in We Real Cool about Black masculinity, like blues is so powerful, especially at the time that it came out, because there was no conduit, there's no like outlet for Black men at that time to be vulnerable. Like people like my grandfather, who were from the South, would work 10, 12 hours, come home and maybe do shit with the family, but like that was like so powerful at the time, because there was nothing to hide behind. People were just, hey, my woman left me, so I have a blues song with 2 chords, touching all of that. Like, but like, so much of America sees these forerunners as taboo, because like, as soon as we do something, or that expression comes out, I feel like, not only is it taboo because it didn't fit into a European structure, but it's like, it just breaks so many boundaries of like, what does Black masculinity or sexuality look like? What does female empowerment look like in the body, or like presenting yourself in public? Like, I think there's so many things to touch on, but like black music goes back to like vibration or like self and saying like we aren't monolithic. Like these are things that stem from like multiple emotions, multiple like sources. So it's just a piggyback off that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dang,
Absolutely.
we don't have any more mics.
Seriously, I'm like, we all just need to, we just need to like sit in the circle, like crisscross
With the pillows at Angel.
Okay. Wow.
I'm gonna come to you. I want to kind of say a few things, because yes. See, I came prepared. I was like, I got all this stuff to say, and now y'all coming in, and I'm like, I don't know what to say anymore. But so we're touching on this thing, and Angel, you mentioned it, this perversion almost, and this need for. I'm going to start here. I always say this because I think it's important to. Again, I'm a words person, and I want to make sure that people understand what I mean. When I say whiteness, usually I'm not talking about a person. I'm not talking about like white people. I'm talking about this culture of whiteness, specifically in America, right? And Ashley, you said something so powerful. I mean, literally everything is like coming at me at once. But like, Ashley, you said something about the power in black. I'm gonna take it a step further. That the power of blackness, even, is this will to fight against the all odds, to give life even when that's not possible. And so this need for white culture to kind of place things in a box really separates people from the aspect of autophysiopsychic music and reality, that reality even. And so I kind of want to come back to these notes that I have, because everything that y'all are saying, I mean, it's like just lined up. But when we talk about this placement in a box, a quote that I pulled from that article that you sent me, it says, "It is no secret that the use," and I'm talking specifically now about the word jazz versus, this idea of autophysiopsychic music, right? So it's no secret that the use of the word jazz to describe the canonic music we associate with Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, and John Coltrane has long been contested, obviously. The J word, which according to many began as sexual slang. It has been viewed as a marketing category and a white perpetuated label to place African American music in a box, and a term that through its voyeuristic association with illicit activities became racially offensive. Oh my God. I had to read that because exactly what you're saying, this kind of like, again, the need to place everything in a box comes from this almost really insidious need to kind of view this black music and this Afrofuturistic music from this aspect of like, I need to own that. There's always, and the power, yes.
That ain't it.
Yeah, and the power in blackness is that there is, as you said, there are no barriers, there's no need for that. It just exists. There's this kind of vibration that just exists that we tap into with different genres, or we tap into with different instruments or gestures or body movements, and we can tap into that. This is fascinating to me. I'm like buzzing. But thinking about this idea again of this voyeuristic association with illicit activities, this idea that the music of black people was so outrageously nonsensical that it further aided the idea of this inhumane way of life purported by members of the diaspora, right? So to whiteness, it would seem that those who are involved with blackness or black music are so silly. How could they, what is this? I'm going to this black church and these people are hollering and shaking and falling on the floor and foaming at the mouth. What is that? And this need to kind of categorize it created this box to put it in. And as I think as one of you mentioned, we sometimes fall into that.
Yeah.
We like play into that, and we attach that to ourselves even with the music that we play. And so this idea, Adam, as you mentioned, what we're trying to do is to release ourselves of that, is to take off those chains, if you will, that have been placed on us by this need. Again, this voyeuristic association of illicit activity.
Yes.
This like need to place everything in this small box for understanding purposes and connect to this autophysiopsychic music because it's already in us. It's already us. It exists, and we just need to like tap in. Oh, yeah, okay, all right. So, again, this is how white people or whiteness infiltrates spaces that are not their own, and they demand to see themselves reflected, or they demand access to what is not theirs.
That part.
I mean, seriously.
That part.
And the only reason why I wanted to take a moment to just literally read what I wrote, because all of you have said exactly this. This is exactly what you're saying, Asher. This is exactly what you're talking about, Angel. This breaking forth of the vibration and making that the focal point. We think about it so often in this aspect of like community. And in my line of work, we talk about like community engagement. Let's get the black folks involved. You know? And it's like, what are you really asking of me? Right? And I say this in no shade. I love the work that I do. I really do. But what is so frequently demanded of that type of a job is that there is this desire for access. And what is the access other than this autophysiopsychic music or lifestyle that exists that people can see from afar? Oh, that works for them. Why does that work for them? And then so there's this need to like keep it close. Oh, we gotta keep a watch on that. Because if it gets too big, what if we don't have access to it? Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna move on, right? I'm gonna move on. But there are things that I just kind of want to touch on. And Adam, you mentioned this to me when we met, that it's not important for us to sit and talk about the issues, right? It's not effective in this moment for us to talk about what the issue is. What we want to do is start to prescribe the medicine, right? And the medicine, therefore, is, what is it?
Autophysiopsychic music.
There it is, y'all.
Okay. It's a method book and everything. He told us exactly how to do it.
Yes.
It's very clear and it's very easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so when thinking about this question that I posed earlier, what is the power of black music? It is all of that. It is this breaking free, if you will, this Afrofuturism that exists already in the music that we create, that allows us to authentically express ourselves, that allows us to tell our stories without barriers, that allows people to have access and exposure to the stories that we have. As you mentioned earlier, these people in Nepal, people in Brazil can experience or feel what we feel because it just exists within that vibration and we are connected to it. So, I just said a lot. My brain is like, woo! Yeah, this is good. This is good, y'all. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Had to have LaRob moderate this. See why we had to have LaRob moderate.
No, thank you. And so I don't want to spend too much time talking about the problem, but I want to say this for contextual purposes. So, unfortunately, Asher, as you pointed out and challenged us, in the United States, especially, all people have to engage with most spaces through the scope of race, right? which we know to be completely made up. It's non-scientific. I've talked to you all about this before. It's illogical and it's exclusionary. However, it's one of the largest systems at play when we negotiate how we move through life and how our experiences are even weighed to assess our value to society. So systems like race are social constructs, and they communicate value and dictate how and what should or shouldn't be done, and they are determined or enforced by power or consent. So that's what we feel when we feel like we have to be placed in that box, right? That's what jazz is this power, or it's consent, right? Where I said sometimes we fall prey to that. It's the consent that, well, this is just how it works here in the United States, so we might as well just go with the flow, right? And power here is the ability to impact another life by prioritizing your own beliefs and biases over the comfort of others. So in thinking about autophysiopsychic music is that belief, as you pointed out, is one that is not an oppressive belief. It doesn't exist within the concept. So I'm kind of rambling to myself now, but so often our music is performed for this kind of white gaze, right? It's performed for this Western gaze, and that gaze stipulates what's allowed. It tells us how often we can do certain things, and it commands a certain level of whiteness to even be granted access to the mainstream, and in this case, media. And so here, prescribing the medicine then is this Afrofuturistic idea of how we do music. Yes? Are y'all with me? Okay, whew, all right, I just said a whole lot of stuff. But, so, I'm gonna ask this question even though we've already answered it, and I don't know how we're doing on time. You let me know when we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, pretty soon. I think we ought to start practicing the autophysics.
That sounds good to me.
But let's go where you're going.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So I just want to kind of give, again, more context to the word Afrofuturism. It's a wide-ranging social, political, and artistic movement that dares to imagine a world where African-descended people and their cultures play the central role in the creation of their world, right? So this is what, again, autophysiopsychic music is this is us daring to create the world based on our experiences, based on our knowledge of that vibration. And we connect that idea of Afrofuturism to Dr. Youssef's autophysiopsychic music because he already pioneered the non-Western sensibility to improvisational exploration.
Absolutely.
As you said, Angel.
Absolutely.
He already did it, and it's characterized by the use of world instruments that would be taken up more broadly. Again, he's already done all of this work for us. So in the broadest sense, Latif's interest in global musical instruments was political here.
Yes.
And then I'll end with this quote, and this is Dr. Youssef. It should be the goal of every musician to combine their theoretical knowledge with their life experience and to offer to and accept knowledge from their own personal source of strength, inspiration, spirituality, and knowledge. So this is what we take from all of this, right?
Woo! Wait, you say it one more time.
Yes, I can.
So we can just really get what the elder is telling us.
Yes.
The prophet, come on.
Yes. It should be the goal of every musician to combine their theoretical knowledge with their life experience and to offer to and accept knowledge from their personal source of strength, their inspiration, spiritual selves, and knowledge. Very that. Youssef Latif's autophysiopsychic quest, fusing intellectual, physical, and spiritual development, reminds us of the long dedication of musicians to knowledge of multiple kinds. It's Since the bebop era, jazz artists have viewed themselves as both intelligentsia and a spiritual community devoted to musical exploration. Few artists have more thoroughly theorized the connection between the two than Dr. Yusuf Lateef. There it is. Thank y'all. Y'all did it. Y'all did the thing. So yeah, thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Asher, for being here virtually. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you to Mike, who had to leave, and thank you to all of you who are here, who have contributed. You all are brilliant, and as I said, you all are the experts of your own personal experiences, and here we are.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I know you had to try to wrap up, but I wanted, there's one thing that I've been wanting to say for a while, and it comes from how Coltrane described Rashid Ali's playing, and he said that he plays multi-directional rhythms, you know, and I really want to hold on to that as like almost as a manifesto for Black people, because a lot of the time we talk about ideas of authenticity and sometimes these essential ideas around what Black people are supposed to be and what Blackness is, and I'm really committed to the idea of multi-directional rhythms. And I think that sometimes when we speak about certain kinds of ideas of authenticity, that also defines what is supposedly inauthentic, you know? And I think if we look at the kind of history of Black people as political people, as musicians, as thinkers, as writers, as dancers, just as living people in terms of, you know, sexual orientation, we go in all kinds of directions, you know? And I think that like a multi-directional sensibility is really key for us as an orientation to the world, and an opening. You know, I think Blackness should always be an opening, and to multiple directions, to multiple futures, and refuse the categorization, as I think you've pointed to and said. But thanks to everyone for having me here. It's the first time I've been a big face on a wall.
We're gonna come to South Africa. Autophysiopsychic Music in South Africa. Can we just all manifest that? All of us over there on Asher's side. Let's just think about it. That's all we have to do is think about it. Wouldn't it be great to be in South Africa and us talking about this and doing this autophysiopsychic music, multi-directional situation? That's the future. That's where we're headed. This is the beginning, you guys. We're here in Chicago, just doing Detroit and Chicago. And we have South Africa here. But this is gonna go global. We're gonna do this all over the Americas. We're gonna do this all over Australia. We're gonna do this all over Europe. We're gonna do this all over. This is important work that we're doing.
Well, thank you so very much to everybody here. Oh, I learned so much from everybody who contributed to us, from LaRob, our moderator, from our esteemed brother in South Africa. It's so great to see Asher and learn from you. I'm just so inspired. And from all the panelists, this is fantastic. Who wants to play? Anybody want to actually do that? All right, here's what I propose to do, and we can talk about it. But I think, so here's the great news. We heard all the erudition coming from South Africa, from our brother Asher, but we also have some of his playing because he has sent us a video, a film of himself playing. He's also invited us to improvise along with him so that we can all kind of feel what it's like to live in his music together. So what I propose is we take a second, get ourselves a little drink or something, enjoy some food over there, which is for everybody. Please feel free. I think we have napkins behind there and stuff like that. There's water in the refrigerator. And then we can cue up Asher's video, get that rolling, get whatever instruments, get your voice together. We have a few microphones and stuff. And then vibrate together in an autophysiopsychic way. What do you think?
I love that idea. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Right?
Thank you.